Games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill put the two genres, horror and shooting, in the same space. They inspired a slew of amazing games to follow, like Dead Space, Bioshock, and Fear being some of the most iconic, with Dead Space leaning more heavily on the horror aspect, and Bioshock leaning more in the shooter and story, using horror as more of an atmosphere than a key point to the gameplay, with Fear being the middle child doing both. So, when I heard, after many years beyond Fear's lifespan, a new game to emerge spawned off its creative vision and inspired by its efforts in the industry, I was curious. Enter Trepang2, a fast-paced shooter pitched as the spiritual successor to Fear, finally giving a return of an old franchise to an onslaught of fans who have for more than half a decade been begging for the return of an underrated cult classic. So upon release, I happily forked over the $30, turned out the lights, and expectation of the horror to unfold. To my surprise, this is what I received. Trepang2 is far from Fear. It sees its DNA rooted somewhere near Fear, most prominently in its bullet time and the supernatural aspects of the game. It does a great job in being a transformative piece on a cult classic, but that's about where it ends. At its core, Fear is a horror game. Its tanky movement isn't just a limitation of the time, but a direct choice by developers. As well as the unwieldy gunplay, it's meant to make you feel out of control, leaving you helpless and scared. The gunfights are messy and chaotic, not in a fast-paced action over a break or beat kind of way, but in a scared and unexpected way. Ammo is extremely limited, and though the setting is fictional, it has clearly defined rules, and never pushes past the brink of what seems crazy. But most importantly, is the context in which these gunfights find themselves between. These harrowing experiences as you are haunted by a little girl. Haunted with visions and watching everyone around you mysteriously die. Even some 20 years later, there were still moments I found myself completely shaken playing it again. Towards the end of the game, as things ramp up, you're constantly set in and out of this dreamlike world, black all around you, and attacked by ghouls. At some point, it just becomes a repetitive, desensitized experience. But just as the game starts to wrap up, they send you back in one last time. And right as you finish the same sequence, time slows. And reality ripples from in front of you. As those exact same creatures that haunted you in the hazy dream sequences rip through the space in front of you. No longer in a dream sequence or a hazy vision. Right when you started feeling a sense of control and comfort as the game wraps up, it's this terrifying reach out to reality, and a reminder that you truly aren't safe. As slow a reveal as it is, it genuinely scared the shit out of me. The same kind of way Psycho Mantis did when he read your memory card, or when the Scarecrow crashed your game. Though different, it fills that same feeling. And the closest thing Trepang2 manages to match it with is what feels like a backrooms reference or walking the halls of a slaughtered laboratory. But yet, I feel not nearly as scared because I'm not even close to being vulnerable. In Fear, it's a constant fight to stay alive. In Trepang2, bullets fucking tickle. And though it has its homages, they feel just like that. An homage. Not a spiritual successor, it's just as much tied with Fear's DNA as it is Crysis, Deus Ex, and Max Payne. You could even feel modern titles like the SCP games, or Superhot, or even Ultrakill at times. So much so that they actually offer the two in a bundle on Steam. Don't get me wrong through all this. I like the game. The main gripe I have with Trepang2 is specifically the fact it's marketed as a spiritual successor which derives so much more than inspiration. No matter where you look, that's the image it's given. Trepang2 is a delightful tribute shooter that brings the relentless yet intelligent and often creative action out of games like Fear. Trepang Studios seeks to finally scratch the itch that the original Fear has left us with for so many years. Trepang2 106. It's an indie Trepang2 review. Don't fear the Reaper. Fear incarnate. Do you get the picture? I think there's nothing inherently wrong with saying we liked Fear, and we were inspired by it as well as every other game of the early 2000s. But specifically building the hype around this game, not just solely off its similarities to Fear, but specifically being the spiritual successor to the game, is just wrong. And I'm not some diehard fan of Fear. When you look at these two games side by side, they are two completely different games. Two separate identities. To say, I made a spiritual successor to Dead Space, then hand you Mass Effect, it wouldn't be honest now, would it? They're both in space, they're both third-person shooters, but one is aliens trying to rip you limb from limb, and the other has alien sex scenes. It's not a bad game. In fact, I would say it's actually quite a good game. Is it top of its genre? No. I mean, the lackluster story, writing, and world building in general feels less complete than that of Fear some 20 years later. And that's because all of it is a means to an end. The end being killing fucking bad guys in slow motion. But there's no such thing as Fear without horror. 3 out of 5. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing. If you want to see more, click the video on the left. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.